on va se faire justice nous-mêmes. On va commencer par leur brûler leur tribunal, ces bâtards.
Je suis d'accord. On va allumer des petits feux partout et ils vont comprendre ce que c'est que d'avoir la rage.
Yeah, we're switching to English now. We're thinking about this idea, this recurrent idea that justice is not just enough. That everybody at one point wants to take his part or her part in the justice process because the institutional justice isn't a justice that is satisfying for everyone.
And somehow we are interested by the idea that that is specifically the task that any citizen do. Meaning, in French, we now used the image of lighting fires. And we think that somehow citizens, their job is to light fires. Those fires can be metaphorical, and for us it's going to be questions. But it can be also very literal. And people who light fires are not Mr. X, Y, young people or old people, but citizens, mainly.
So the fact that we, at some point in our lives, we want to question justice is some kind of revolt, and this is what the citizenship is about, is to say this is not justice, I want something more. And this is maybe the idea that brings to the birth of the citizen tribunal itself. The idea that there's an institutional justice on one side, but it's not enough.
And therefore the first question we were asking ourselves is kind of basic, but what's a citizen trial? Meaning, like, how does it differentiate itself from different type of trial? And first of all, face to institutional justice, we can say.
The institutional justice fails to be just enough because at some point it's the justice of some entity, some national entity. It's a state that has the power to accuse people and to judge people and to deliver and to execute a sanction.
And somehow that was also one of the main criticisms of Sartre around institutional justice, which was exactly this fact that, except in Nuremberg, the state itself could not be judged by institutional justice because it was the impulse of institutional justice. But there is also this thing to see in reading his philosophical work, in the Critique of Dialectic Reason, that he retraces the nature of an institution at the moment of its revolutionary birth. And he underlined how an institution is somehow made halfway by a practice, what he called praxis, instituting praxis, and at the same time with a thing, a dead thing, like a set of rules. And as the institution progresses, the set of rules take over, and the life of the institution dies.
Yes, there's something something incomplete in the institutional justice, because the need for justice, the impulse for justice, comes from maybe you could say a universal need, something that is truly lacking in the present situation. There's been a fault, there's been a victim, and you need repair. But at the same time, this impulse immediately degrades into what you call a thing, that is an institution that is not able to maintain this level of justice that was at the start. The impulse of justice was maybe we can say true. And then the fact that it has been institutionalized, it becomes something else. And justice, the justice in the end, is not the one that was needed at first, because it has fallen into the real. And the real, of course, as we've just seen, sometimes somebody is not there. The person who gave the order is not there. So we are going to judge without him. But we have to do, I mean, the institution has to do the justice without this person. So the justice in the end always falls short of being just. Mm-hmm. So that's the institutional problem.
And somehow, I see in the attempt of Russell and Sartre to stand this first like citizen trial, an attempt to really give life to this type of institution, like to kind of shake the box a little bit by trying to reproduce it out of this institution. Like, yeah, to re-involve people inside of the life of the institution.
Yeah, there are two different ways where justice fails to be just. Sorry. This, the fact that the state is the only entity capable of putting on a trial, and is the only one who's the owner of this justice in a sense. And in the other way, private justice, so public justice, public made by a state for a state with all the political dimension of a state, is a problem for justice. And at the same time, a private justice, a justice that would be the justice of someone, enterprise. Yes, a company, for instance, would be also a privatization of justice that suffers the same problem.
And for there is potentially the way, if we go back, for example, to Roman law. In Roman law, there is different nature of property. There is private property, public property, and this very strange legal case of common property, which cannot be a property. So you have the opposition between public and private, which falls short nowadays once that the public is submitted to law of market, public become private. We have the opposition which kind of explodes, we could say, through the notion of common. And potentially, we can explore how like citizen trial come to destroy this opposition between public trial or popular trial and private trial, as we could imagine like an enterprise, Monsanto judging company.
Yes. And another very interesting thing about the citizen trial is what Antonin said. It's the revitalization of the native impulse of justice before it has been captured by a state or by a private party. Okay. The idea that we need more justice, and everybody can feel it at that time. The justice provided by the state is not enough. The justice by this group is not enough. So there's no private justice, but there's no public justice. And this is where the idea of another space, another time space, where justice could be the justice that we want, the authentic justice, we could say, is a common place of the common. It's when you start to think outside of the public sphere versus private sphere. It's when a group of people take in charge the initial impulse of justice.
But in this case,
yes.
I have a very kind of seems genuine question, but if citizen trial is a kind of participation to citizen into deciding or deciphering laws and its application, what would be the difference with a very well done referendum, where like all the citizens come to ask themselves a question like we will at the end of the citizen trial and say, that's my answer, and that will have a juridical application. What could be the difference?
Yes, because in the referendum, of course, there's a direct, it's a direct democratic process. So we could think of a parallel between citizen trial and referendum. But the big difference is that the citizen trial uses everything that justice uses, meaning a court, a jury, and actually all the publicity around the trial. If there's no mediatization, if there's no media covering the citizen trial, if nobody hears about this trial, it's not, it's worthless. It has no impact. So the idea of a citizen trial is to use all the clothes, I would say, the performing, yes, and also the theater type of roles, arguments, stage, interaction between the accusator and the defense. Okay, you need all this to perform actually this ritual that is counter. It's a counter ritual to the institutional justice.
And there is also one very important difference, because in fact it's very often what we reproach to referendum, but that citizen trial, we started to speak about it yesterday, but citizen trial doesn't execute its condemnation. And it would be like...
So it's a pure performance. There's no sanction at the end.
It would be like...
There's a judgment, but there's no application of the trial decision. So
yeah,
you don't go to jail.
Like it would be a referendum where like all the nation vote and after like nothing happened. It's kind of a fake referendum.
But actually what it tells us is very interesting, is that the trial doesn't find its meaning in the sanction, in the punishment. The citizen trial is by itself the justice. The process of justice is not something you obtain in the end. This guy goes to jail, for instance, or this state is condemned to pay, to give money back to the group that has been a victim. No, it's during the performance itself of the trial that something is obtained, is gained. And this is justice.
And that's, for me, is, at least in some philosophy, it's kind of like another way that justice fails in giving back justice. Meaning we all know the symbol of justice, which is the scale, right? And
the scale, yes.
Yeah, and we all forget that the scale is a merchant sign first, yes, which is there to draw quantity equivalency. Like 3 bananas is the same way than like 2 kiwis. Like, but it's funny because we cannot compare bananas with kiwis. We cannot compare the death of a young guy with like 15 years of jail. There is no comparison possible. Though we work in justice like what Rémi Astruc called at least economical justice. A justice which works on economy. 1 life, 20 years, 1 car, 150,000. This type of economy which in fact doesn't change that the guy died.
Yeah.
And he will not come back to life. Evil has been made, it can be compensated, but it cannot be redeemed. And that's kind of like justice never can be made.
Yes, so it's a problem of the institutional justice. That is what gives birth to the need for another kind of justice. So it's the pain itself, it's the execution of the pain itself that is a problem, because nobody is ever satisfied with the pain. Just like Antonin said, the mother of the guy who's been shot dead, won't be paid. Whatever the decision is, whatever the life sentence is, or if it's 20 years or 30 years, we all know this. So the need for justice is not fulfilled. So that's when this revives something common, a sense of justice actually, that is common, that is not your individual sense of justice, it is not mine. At this time, when we don't pronounce a sanction, we're still deliberating on what is good and what is bad, what has been done, and what we have to live with afterwards. And we stay, and justice is probably, at this point, in the common deliberation, much more than in the sanction. So the citizen trial, by stopping its process before the sanction, after the judgment, but before the punishment, brings us all to this ground, this common ground, where we can really deal with the events and be still just. You know, it's a sanction that is unsatisfying, basically.
And at this level, for example, there is some very interesting comment of Levinas on some Talmud passage, where he comments how history is a kind of chain of violence, as we know, but justice is also a kind of chain of violence. The jury of a tribunal transforms itself afterwards as the executioner when he gonna perpetuate violence to compensate the violence which happened. And that somehow the aim of ethic or of a just jurisdiction would be to break the chain of violence. That's the attempt of the Christ when he said, like, not an eye for an eye, but give the other cheek. And the point that Levinas underlined, but not only him, is that what's happening there is that justice is made within the person who suspends the line of violence. It's made inside of his subjectivity somehow. Something changed, and he stopped to be an executioner. And if a human being stopped to be an executioner, justice can happen. So that somehow, maybe this thing of not applying an execution, a sentence, maybe is on the fact of participating to the citizen trial. That something of a justice, of a sense of justice can happen in the way it transforms the consciousness and the conscience of the person participating to it.
So there's a middle way between, you know, state justice and divine justice. So state or private justice or divine justice. And this intermediary stage is the stage of a citizen trial. And it's the stage of the common, where you suspend your subjectivity. You're not God, but you're not the individual. You elevate yourself to this common process, this participatory process, where a sense of a justice that could be just can be felt.
And if we look at this, what we were starting to speak about yesterday, but if we look at the testimony of Cette after the first citizen tribunal of Brussels, when he speaks about all those big intellectual monsters, like you have Cette who can write to the gold privately, this type of thing, like big person, and through like studying the case and facing the evidence, he described how the singularity of each one somehow mattered less and less. And that they were becoming, and he used this word, he was becoming quelconque.
Yeah, anonymous in a sense. He was not the elite intellectual, like the world well-known.
And like they lose a sense of identity and they become one in a kind of totalitarian union group. But it's something in which they are not private anymore, they are not like private individual, in the sense that they don't stand for themselves. They don't stand for their own value, but they stand for kind of values which not necessarily are theirs. And this change the base of trial, generally speaking, which is the idea of objectivity. Objectivity in the trial is based on ignorance. Like the jury should not know anything, and little by little they acquire information. Historically in philosophy, objectivity is based on omniscience, the fact of knowing everything, which is the only status of God, who know like the past and the future, and therefore just God can be just. And there we arrive to another type of objectivity. Let's start to speak about in his kind of like Marxist background.
But maybe we can understand this better if we think of the pedagogy of this trial. You start this trial as a person, and then you're going to be changed by the interaction with the others, but all this reflection about what is good, what is bad. And this is what we will be enacting also during this week. We will engage in this participatory process, which is a common process. We're processing common. And we will not be the same at the end. So we will have lived in this in-between stage, between theater and justice, where we can suspend ourselves, our subjectivity, try to reach not only objectivity, but this sense of justice that is only probably something possible in this intermediary stage.
And there's, okay, it's a little proposition somehow, but for me there is something which can be strong in how we restart to understand the term of citizenship. That we understand usually citizenship as a sense of belonging to a city, originally speaking, which is belonging to a group, which is belonging to a nation, which is basically a question of identity. And we spoke about the complicated German identity during the time of the case. But, okay, that's my general, general ideology. Identity is a dead end. It leads always straight to the war. It leads always to bloodshed, period. Meaning like, that somehow citizenship, through the example of citizen trial, can be understood not as a big identity belonging, but as a task. Something that you do which kind of create institution and keep them alive. Institution necessarily is not just for myself, it gathers people, and it dies necessarily. It becomes things, it becomes like totalitarian.
It becomes a machine that works without any conscience.
And whoever do something consciously to keep this institution alive, and do something which comes from common deliberation, and create a common deliberation, only this person is citizen. Someone who say, I'm French, no. You know, it's a kind of okay, it's theoretical proposal, but it changed somehow the way we can discuss through the week, asking ourselves, okay, I'm not speaking from my French thing and like, no, it should be that. But okay, no, we are trying to also give back life or movement to the flow of institution.
And just to say last word, the idea to put a trial on trial is probably the only way to keep this need for justice alive. It's to reenact justice all the time is the only way to keep in touch with this basic need of a justice for everyone. So to contest is the only way to be in common, actually, and to keep alive the need for justice.
Yeah, there will be necessarily this movement because anything which, it's a tautology, sorry, but like everything which is alive die, okay? But somehow the death of the institution, if it's taken in conscience, is somehow the condition of keeping it dynamic. If each time we multiply, we judge the judge, we try to try, we can keep it, assume it's dying, giving it a punch. We know this punch is going to die. We know the citizen trial will become an institution which will become dead. So we have to invent something else, etc., 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 etc.